Children growing up in poverty are by far the most likely young people to end up in family court on juvenile delinquency charges, and the most likely to be sent to a state lockup to serve months in semi-secure detention before returning home.
The last thing I would describe is the crimes they commit. The first thing I would describe is that these are children, as young as 9, as old as 15. And the other thing I just want to point out is that these are children, as Larry said, that are from our poorest communities, whose families are overstressed, undersupported, the communities are under-resourced, and these kids come in and they may have allegedly committed what if they were adult would be a crime, but the crimes are basically low level. These kids, for some reason, are coming through a prosecution system where kids that are white are not.
The kids themselves are generally from the areas that face lots of issues with poverty, lots of issues with problems with the schools, lots of child welfare issues. You can see all of that play out in court. Crimes can range from shoplift, graffiti on the low end, to robberies, serious robberies. We even occasionally get some homicides each year. So you have the full kind of gamut there.
100% of the kids who are in Blue Sky have a Axis 1 diagnosis of conduct disorder with an accompanying ADHD. So they all have some pretty significant mental health illness.
The Department of Justice came out with a report that the union totally embraces. We've been saying what the Department of Justice findings are, but we've been saying that for the last 30 years, that we need more mental health practitioners, that we need more folks that have the knowledge to deal with the mental health disorders that these youngsters are coming into our system with.
It's important to note that the condition of the facilities is unacceptable. There's no question about that. So when you see a report like the DOJ report, obviously that's somewhere where you really don't want to send anybody.
I also want to talk about the restraints, because I think this is a very important issue, and it was highlighted in the DOJ report. The restraints were out of control when Commissioner Carrion began her tenure, out of control. And our clients report being restrained for making a face, for not moving quickly enough, for not getting off the phone quickly enough. These are not in any policy. I don't see these in any policy. But if you talk to our kids, this is what they're getting restrained for.
I think the Department of Justice report represents, on the one hand, a pretty strong indictment of the system as it exists in terms of the way that the children have been treated, and also in terms of the lack of resources that are available to provide them with the kind of treatment, the kind of services that the system needs to make it what one would consider to be an adequate system.
We have to start treating also the parents. The parents have to get involved too. You could spend $1 million in therapy per child, but if that child has to go back to a dysfunctional family, most likely the success is not going to be recorded.
Most of the kids we see, and we see them in a very different way, right, than corp counsel, because we're in their homes, we're in their schools, we're meeting with them, we're meeting with their parents, with their grandparents. We know them intimately, and I would say most of these kids do not need to be placed away from home. They need some wraparound services for their family. I want to just say that loud and clear. Not just for them, for their family and their communities.
It's not fair either to just either let the children out or keep them in the community without the community having the resources that they need. I mean, it's not that these kids don't have issues. You know, they have mental health issues, they have substance abuse and other issues, and you need to have facilities in the communities to deal with those things if you're going to keep them there.
Okay, so a thumbnail sketch of what we do. So these families that we work with, as Mr. Ruiz mentioned, don't often benefit from the community-based treatment that they're offered, and they don't get the full dose of treatment. So our job is to try to figure out a way to help the families get the full dose of treatment. We do that by going into the homes We do strictly home-based treatment. We work with the entire family. So while the youth who has been referred to us may be the identified client, if there's a parent with mental health issues, we treat that. If there's a parent with substance abuse issues, we treat that. If there are siblings with mental health or substance abuse, we deliver the treatment in that. I can say that very few of our kids do significant violent reoffenses while they're with us.
One of the significant differences between 2005 and now is there's more programming. There's more options available. We didn't have JJI. We had the Esperanza program, which is a similar program, but that had limited capacity. So if you look over that period of time, I think it's pretty clear the judges are and obviously there are variances across boroughs, there are variances in individual judges, but there's an interest in it, there's acceptance of it. I think part of what has to happen to make that move even further is judges have to feel that there's confidence in the programs.
When you look at those neighborhoods and the supports they offer and the problems that exist in those neighborhoods, they seem overwhelming. And when you're a judge and you read about them in a report and you see a kid who educationally isn't doing well because those school systems are failing for them and families are overstressed, what we do is then we say that kid, oops, that kid needs to be out of his home. That kid needs something else. Instead of saying what we should be saying, what we say with white families, which is what can we do with this family in this community. We give up way too easily with poor communities.
Once we reach the point where these communities have the same access or the same level of substance abuse and mental health and other services that can then divert children who sometimes are put in simply because the services are not there. Then you can weed out the ones who actually need to be in the facilities.
Sylvia's program is only available for kids who are at the highest end. But if we could put those services in place on those cases where there's not the real strong public safety concerns, but where there's real need, perhaps not only could you better serve those families, but you can prevent those high-end cases from coming in the first place.
I'm hopeful that the Department of Justice report and the things that have kind of risen up as a result of that will make a strong case that even in this fiscal crisis, we have to look at the long term and look at what we're doing to these children and for these children.